brief background on Anthony's grandfather, Benjamin Birkbeck, and let you know that I'm very proud to have him here. He's my dad, Anthony's grandfather. And growing up in Michigan, it was a very interesting experience having him as my father. So we had, for example, how many of you have seen Mythbusters? Oh, a lot of people have seen Mythbusters. Well, growing up, my dad he's a doctor, as you'll find out. He was also very mechanical and had a garage that was very much like the laboratory in Mythbusters. And I kid you not. So there were many different things that he could do there, work on cars, work on woodworking and generators and all sorts of interesting things. And I would have loved in 6th grade if I could have had him come in and talk to my classroom. And I think it's a wonderful, wonderful idea that Ms. Sullivan, Mr. Bunting, have people come in so it exposes you to the different types of fields out there, the different opportunities you have as children to study and learn and look at the different possibilities in our natural world. I'm just going to give you a couple quick examples growing up. So, for example, growing up, I remember we had to move a refrigerator down from the first floor to the basement, and through a series of pulleys, my dad made it so that he could do that by himself. Just with, as you know, simple machines, pulling makes the work, makes it easier to move large objects. So he did that. We had, I remember him building a TV in the basement with a heat kit, soldering the different transistors together, and I worked side by side creating a radio. So different things, putting things together. Different opportunities, learning how, as I learned how to drive a car, I not only learned how to drive a car, but I learned how to, it's called kickstart a car, where if the battery is dead, you put it in neutral and then pop the clutch and let it start up without really needing that battery for the charge for the car. So all sorts of different things you can learn, knowing about the physical world and knowing how things go together. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Birkbeck, to Benjamin Birkbeck, to tell you a little bit about his life growing up. He was born in 1930, and that was quite a different time in our country, and talk a little bit about what he did as a 6th grader, and talk about what he did, the type of different studies, and how he came to be a doctor, and how he came to have his passion about antique cars. So if you could just press that a moment, you can see here, we have a little picture of a car, but we will do a lot more than that. So let's turn off the lights, and maybe I can take over on this. We can talk a little bit about being a...
So Sparkle, can you give her your seat?
Okay.
There's a seat right next to Mr. Trump. You can sit.
Okay. So, let's do the next.
And maybe even you, Allison.
You give the nice comfy chair to Anthony's mom, and you sit in the student chair around the floor. Thank you.
So,
Okay, all right. How do you advance it? So,
she's just have to go.
okay, so Dad, why don't you talk a little bit about the...
Well, let's see, where do we start? I've always been interested in how things work, and I used to take things apart to see what was inside. And when I was your age, one of our heroes was Charles Lindbergh. Have you ever heard of Charles Lindbergh? He flew the Atlantic in that single-engine airplane all by himself. And he was one of America's big heroes. There were a lot of other people that we looked up to that built airplanes and flew in airplanes, and I got very interested in that. So I was interested in building model airplanes. We used to build them all the way up from scratch with the little sticks and the airplane glue, and put fabric on them and put engines in them. This was before World War II, when everybody got interested in airplanes, and there were so many airplanes around. My father used to take me out to the airport. We'd watch the big airliner land. It wasn't anything like you have now. The big airliner had 2 engines, and it only held about 20 people or so. I was able to take some flying lessons when I was 15 years old. I couldn't fly the airplane by myself until I was 16 and get my license. Quite young in those days.
Want to just have it on.
So I stopped taking flying lessons because it cost quite a bit of money until I had finished college and everybody was being drafted. I thought that was pretty good. I didn't want to get drafted, so I joined the Air Force, and the government taught me how to fly airplanes, and I got my chance to be an airplane pilot, which was something I wanted ever since I was a little kid. And when I finished flying, we'll have to get back to what I did when I was in school. I had a lot of interest in hobbies, and I had a chemistry lab in the closet in my bedroom. We would, one of the things we did was to make hydrogen gas. To make hydrogen gas, you put zinc in hydrochloric acid, and you see the little flask there, and you'd have a tube leading out of the flask. You'd fill the balloons up with hydrogen gas, which is very light. And you've seen the balloons that they fill with helium that they have for birthday parties and so forth. Hydrogen is even lighter than helium. It went up in the air very nicely. We put a little note on the balloon, and when the balloon came down, I asked the people that found the note to write to me and tell me where the balloon came down. And sometimes they'd go 20 or 30 miles, and I'd get a note back, very nice, about my balloon. We also, there was quite a bit of interest even then in rockets. We had comic strips. You may not have heard of Buck Rogers, but Buck Rogers was in the comic strips, and he would fly these rockets to all sorts of planets and everything. That was before we even thought it was even possible to have like Air and Space Administration and flying up to the moon and so forth like we do now. So I would build a rocket in my chemistry lab, and learn how to make gunpowder and put it in the tubes and the lighted fuse, and get our rockets to go off a little ways. So, I had a lot of interests. Actually, my first interest, of course, was airplanes and building the models and so forth. I was interested in engineering and science. I thought it would be nice to be a doctor and be able to help people and work on the human body like I did on other things. But I first thought I would study engineering or science in school. So I actually started school and went to college as in the engineering department. But then I switched to more general studies and switched to chemistry as a major, and got my actual degree in school in chemistry, but that I learned all the things you have to learn in order to go to medical school before I actually went in the Air Force and became a pilot. After I got back from the Air Force, I went